Hello, Emerson, and welcome to tonight's episode of Speechless. I'm your host, Nina Palecchio, and today we'll be debating the issues that matter. We cover a broad range of topics from politicians to pop culture. So ready, set, speechless. First, we'll be discussing the issue of sexual assault at Emerson. Then, should companies still be allowed to Photoshop people's bodies in advertisements? Finally, we'll be discussing whether California should be divided into 6 different states. The competition is heating up with the Knights and the Spartans tied for the lead, working for Speechless Grand Champion. Spartans, how do you feel about tonight's debate?
We're feeling really well, Nina. We're prepared to take them down and defend our championship title.
Irish blood rushing through my veins. It's St. Patty's Day. Let's take this one.
Yeah.
Definitely ready for the heat. And giving a fierce fight, we have the Knights. Ladies, what are you planning on doing tonight for the debate?
I think we're planning on kicking their butt. I mean, we have the luck of the Irish on our side.
The luck of the Irish, St. Patrick's Day. All right, ladies, well, let's see what happens. It is time to get started with the debating. In this day and age, the danger of sexual assault is a topic that universities have to repeatedly stress. Emerson has recently dealt with a slew of accusations about whether our staff is handling cases of sexual assault well. Like many universities, Emerson has various events regarding sexual assault and how to protect yourself from being in uneasy situations. But is this enough? Many argue that Emerson should be making greater efforts to prevent sexual assault than they are right now. If a student is sexually assaulted, they should feel comfortable coming forward to Emerson staff to seek support and justice. However, some would argue that Emerson does not make these services as readily available as they should. Before we begin our debate, let's get a little more information on the topic.
No. Yes, now, but it used to be no.
No.
Yes.
No.
No.
I think that Emerson handles parts of sexual assault cases correctly and well. I think that other parts are not handled correctly. But with that being said, I think that it's a systematic college issue on campuses all over the country and not just Emerson.
I think that sexual assault cases are a very complicated issue. I've never been involved with one personally at Emerson College, so I can't speak as well as someone who might have had more to do with that sort of a situation. But what I can say is that Emerson College represents its students and treats its students very well. And from my understanding, a lot of the controversy that has been brought up from this situation has been inflated by student opinions and hearsay and this and that.
And I say that because personally, I've heard lots of stories from girls and other gentlemen here as well and other people who don't identify, and they say they don't feel very comfortable on campus, and I think that putting posters up around the school doesn't cut it. Whenever I walk in the bathroom, whenever I walk in the hallway, there's like sexual assault everywhere. And then I'm thinking to myself, like, they must have done something wrong. And I wasn't here last year, so I wouldn't really know. But I don't think they're handling it the right way from what I see visually. And I know that we keep getting emails and all this other good stuff, but I don't think it's cutting it.
So, does Emerson properly handle issues regarding sexual assault? Knights, let's start with you.
Well, in the past, Emerson College has inappropriately handled issues of sexual assault to the point that now the federal government has had to get involved.
In what way is the federal government involved?
Well, because students are reporting it to the government under Title IX, the federal government is now demanding an investigation.
Oh, wow. Spartans, what do you have to say?
Just to go off of that, Emerson actually did recently meet with Title IX coordinators to reevaluate how they should be handling sexual assault and to get some more training on the issue and what they should be doing in the future to be better prepared for situations that will come up on sexual assault. So even though, yes, the federal government is involved, Emerson is definitely taking precautions to make themselves better in handling situations.
And they're aware that now that they're involved.
Aware, and they're definitely not brushing the Title IX under the rug. You know, they're getting really involved with coordinators and trying to fix themselves for the future.
Do you have any specific examples of what they've been doing?
They've met with the Title IX coordinators, which they actually did hold a town hall meeting on October 21st in the Cutler Theater right down the street, which people could attend and, express their views and concerns to the president of Emerson, as well as directors such as Sylvia Spears, who is the diversity and inclusion director. So, they definitely are making themselves available to the students as well as to staff and anybody in the town who feels that they need to express their opinions about the situation.
So this wasn't just for Emerson, it was a community
Yep,
event.
it was a town hall meeting that was held at the theater where anybody could go and ask questions, give their views, their opinions, which the staff of Emerson definitely took into consideration when they were meeting with Title IX coordinators as well as implementing new services for students who want to get involved with this.
So kind of going off that, ladies, in what way do you think that's not beneficial? I mean, if Emerson is making an effort,
It's too late.
yeah.
Many women have been assaulted on and off campus, members of Emerson College and not members. It's too late.
Well, I don't think it's too late. I mean, it happened, and now they're taking new precautions to try to prevent it.
Yeah, but if you're saying it's too late, then you're saying that there isn't hope for the future for us to prevent this.
Yes.
We are implementing programs and new precautions so that it doesn't happen in the
to
future.
better
Even even if it happened after one rape, it is still too late. This should have happened when the college was created.
But are you saying that the college shouldn't implement the precautions that they did?
I'm saying that they should definitely implement these programs, but they should have already been implemented.
The problem is that Sarah Tedesco was the first one to bring the issue up and put her name out there, and obviously now they're doing it to cover their tracks. But before that, Emerson didn't have any real help for rape victims. They didn't really know
maybe
who to
they
go
didn't
to.
they didn't think that this was a college where something like this would happen. I mean, of course they did have programs available for students beforehand, but after it happened, they really took a step back and they were like, whoa, wait a minute, we really need to step up our game here and make programs available for students to better ourselves.
The question stems from response.
Yes.
Just Emerson College responded and implemented programs, had speakers come in who have dealt with rape
Yep.
before.
Speakers, what?
They've had many
They
speakers come in,
specifically
actually.
had Jacqueline Friedman come in, and she
Yep.
came in, she had an open forum, and she was able to talk to students. Students were either had any questions about sexual assault or just questions in general about rape culture. They specifically brought her in following the incidents and following the report to address these issues. Emerson has responded and has implemented programs like Sexual Assault Survivor Advocate Program, which is used and is in place for people who have any questions about it or who have dealt with these problems.
And I think we all did just get an email about a new forum meeting with, they're taking 20 students to start it off.
Yes.
For
yes.
the SASA program?
Right.
Yes.
Yep, it's a 24-hour available service to any students as well as faculty. And they train people to be able to respond to situations such as these,
Okay.
to help a student, in any way that they need to feel safe or if they just want to talk about it. They also have a lot of professionals who work with this program to teach others how to be available and how to
extend
properly
it to the
respond.
RAs, to be able to have
Yep.
people always
And I mean,
available
if
to do
that's
that.
present, our debate is on the past, and Emerson College has not properly addressed sexual assault in the past. One student, when she was sexually assaulted and she went to the administration, she was told that there is no rape victim support here at the college.
And
now there is,
was
but there wasn't
there-
in the past.
There was no official rules or official regulations
no,
in place?
There were not.
When
they
was that
had-
incident specifically?
That specific incident,
I believe it was over the last couple years.
yes.
So
The three major
recently.
incidents have happened within the last 2 years.
Well, I think that there's always going to be room for an improvement, and I think that they definitely had counselors. I mean, every college has to have counselors on
But the
site that
counselors
anyone can
that
go
were on
to.
site, it is almost, when I went to the counselors and tried to get a meeting with them, it was another 3 weeks. And that happened with them. They could not get an
But
appointment.
were you trying to get an appointment with them about a sexual assault, or were you
No,
just
but
trying to
even,
talk to
even
them?
then, in an interview,
All
one
right.
of the victims said that she couldn't even get a meeting with the counselor for another 2 weeks.
All right, I'm going to end it on that note. That's actually a very interesting note. I really like how you ladies brought up that it's too late. We are looking at the future. These sexual assault incidences have happened. They are what are bringing the whole case of Emerson's sexual assault, handling situations like that to light. That's what's going on. But what I liked about your argument was that it's preventing for the future. What happened is in the past. While our programs might not have been perfect, they are definitely coming along, and it's definitely something that we're looking forward to. So I'm definitely going to give the points to the Spartans for this first debate. But pay attention, viewers, to these vital commercials, because matters of importance shouldn't fall on deaf ears. Welcome back, viewers. Earlier this year, lingerie store Aerie, owned by American Eagle Outfitters, launched a campaign of completely raw photos. Young models posing in their underwear. We've seen it 1,000 times before. So, what's the difference here that has everybody talking? The models haven't been touched by Photoshop. They're real people being portrayed realistically. That begs the question, should other companies be allowed to keep retouching when we know it's so harmful to the psyche of many women? Many would argue that retouching is part of the fashion industry and is often used for aesthetic purposes. They're paying for the ad space. They should get to put in it what they want, right? Others would argue that companies, especially those targeting a younger demographic, should be held responsible for the effect their ads have on women's self-esteem. So, the debate for today is, should companies be allowed to retouch their advertisements? Let's find out what the experts have to say about this.
Those campaigns that feature models that are photoshopped and retouched pretty much promote the image of a woman that is perfect. You perceive that you have to look outstanding because this is the standard, right? Being a model is a full-time job. You have your sacrifices in school also and your commitments. So when you look up to those models that are retouched, you think you really cannot attain that standard of beauty. This comes after you have been playing with the Barbie dolls in childhood. That affects also perceptions of beauty. That is reiterated in the marketing campaigns that you see for teen clothing and so on, where models are photoshopped. They look absolutely amazing and stunning, but that is also because of the technology and also because that's their job. What I think it does is, it can set a precedent. So what they're doing is socially responsible. It's certainly a marketing gimmick. They are not doing that necessarily because they want to help us with our self-esteem. The bottom line is they do want to make profit. It pretty much, it's a win-win situation for us because it's a beginning. Certainly is going to change the perceptions that the teen have about themselves. Will it increase sales? I think so.
So debaters, should companies be allowed to retouch their advertisements? Spartans, let's hear from you first.
We believe that companies should not be allowed to retouch their advertisements because not only does Photoshop incorrectly portray 95% of our population, it also has been used in many studies to prove that it's the leading cause in eating disorders in men and women of all ages, specifically teens, but the Photoshop does affect all ages of our country, as well as other countries.
Okay. And Knights, what about you?
We believe that companies have the right and freedom to do whatever they want with their photos. They obviously pay for that space so they can do what they want. If their mentality is to Photoshop, that's fine. And of course, Photoshop is a common practice. It's been around here forever. And they're competing. It's a business. They're competing with everybody else who's photoshopping. So it's a common thing in fashion and entertainment industry. So yeah, it's obviously some people are against it, but obviously it's something common we see every day.
I know it's a business, but it's a complete lie. Like, they're basically advertising something that's not even something that's true. It's just a huge lie, and it's just really.
I mean, like,
But it's not changing the figures of these models. Even if you take away Photoshop, you're still going to have the size 000 models. It's going to set higher.
But the size
standards
000
for
models is not even a real person. Only less than 5% of American females actually are.
And on top of that,
in
Photoshop doesn't just take away blemishes; it can reduce the actual model size. You can reduce the size of the model using Photoshop.
But the bad thing is that if we can't use Photoshop, the models have to be even more perfect, even better, because they can't have pimples or zits. So it's gonna make even models have more unrealistic standards.
But what you guys were saying earlier, that it is their money that they're using for the space to advertise. Isn't it just a stupid business move then to alienate 95% of Americans? Oh, those women in those just in the advertising, it's 5%.
Where are you getting? I'm just curious. Where are you getting that 95% from?
Well, the statistic is that 5%. The models that are portrayed that are about in the 0 to 1 category for sizes, that only portrays 5% of all women in the United States.
Okay.
While the average size of women in the United States is 14.
So it's not portraying the average American.
Yeah, it's not portraying the average American. On top of that, if they said it was a business, it would be a poor business move to alienate 95% of Americans.
But every other company except for Ari has been doing this for the past
And
decades.
honestly,
It's a
at this
common
point,
thing.
it's just one campaign. We haven't seen if they're going to make this a lifetime campaign. And
We
also,
have
other
seen
companies,
things
And
like
the-
this
and-
happen in other companies, though. Life and Style magazine with Kim Kardashian has done this before, where they haven't photo touched any of their models, as well as Kate Blanchett appeared
and-
on a
excuse me, but Kim
$2,000
Kardashian
cover.
is kind of different because
Well, what
although
about
she
the-
may not be a size 0 or a size 2, she does have a very curvaceous, almost Betty Boop kind of style. She's very hourglass shaped.
I mean, it
She's-
doesn't really
she's
matter
a
who the
beautiful-
person is or
Also,
not.
Dove implemented the Real Beauty
Yeah.
campaign over the past several years, and that has been a very successful campaign.
Yep.
And Aerie isn't the first one to do this, and
No.
Dove found success portraying women realistically. And just the fact is, it's a bad business move from them to alienate so many women.
Dove
and
may have portrayed women realistically, but they also got women with flawless complexions.
Can we
They
also
didn't
take a
pick
moment just to
women-
think about the fact that these advertisements aren't even necessarily bringing in more money for these companies? They're just portraying, or giving children eating disorders, teenagers, as well as
it's
women and men,
perpetuating a
adults.
culture of negative body image, and it's
Yeah.
ultimately
But
leading
it doesn't
to all
even
of
bring
this.
in
models
revenue.
are still going to be skinny, even if a model is
Well, no,
a
but
size
I
2
said
and
that
they don't make her a
Photoshop
size
can
0.
lessen someone's. It's not just about reducing blemishes.
Yeah.
You can make someone appear smaller by Photoshop.
Obviously,
Yeah.
Photoshop can do that, but everybody is used
But
to seeing
then they're
models
still
like that.
going to. Then there's companies are still going to make their models be size 0s. It's
Well,
I mean,
that's not
every
true.
company is going to compete. Victoria's Secret wants to cut her than
And they're
any other brand.
competing.
So they're competing. If you say, oh, you can't do Photoshop, obviously their sales are going to go down, because if you see a hot model with something like a hot dress on, I know I want to buy that.
It's aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, exactly. It's aesthetically pleasing, of course.
You can't necessarily say that they're going to get models that are 00 in real life.
they
considering the
already
fact that,
have models that are 00 in real life.
but that's
The
only
normal
less than
models have-
5% of females. But
it
that
doesn't matter
No,
to
they don't
them.
have 00 models. They Photoshop them to make them 00.
And the popular response to the Aerie campaign has been largely successful. You've been seeing their numbers go up,
Yeah.
specifically because of this new campaign.
But that's Aries mentality, not every mentality. Maybe some people want to do it. Some people want to Photoshop models.
Because
That's
to
what
me,
their job
aesthetically
is.
pleasing, I don't want to see a size 14 woman walking down the runway at Victoria's Secret's fashion show.
Well, that's
every
pretty
year.
rude of you to not say that.
I don't care. I'm a more vain person than the next person, but I'm being truthful when I admit I don't want to see a size 14 woman walk down that runway. I like seeing Miranda Kerr or Tyra Banks or Heidi Klum walk down there with their
And that's not really Photoshop.
they're not photoshopped
I mean,
in
of
real
course
life.
they're beautiful women and they're naturally skinny, but that's less than 5% of American
And on
females
top
who
of it,
actually
that's,
look
wa-
like
that's
that.
walking down the
Everyone's
runway.
skinny.
That's walking down the runway. We're talking about advertising. This is hitting millions and millions of people,
runway is
perpetuating.
advertising.
All
It is,
right,
but it doesn't
last
reach nearly
thought.
as many people.
Okay. On that note, I would like to bring up how you guys said it was a business originally. It is a business, and in the business, you're trying to make money. So they're using these aesthetically pleasing models in Photoshop to make their money. I did like how you guys brought up the statistic of it's only targeting 5% of the population. You're leaving out 95%. So is that really necessarily the best marketing tactic? Maybe not. And especially maybe with all of these disorders that are coming up with eating. But what I really liked was that the companies have the right to use their ad space the way they want to use it. And I really liked what you said at the beginning, that even without Photoshop, it's going to give these models and these ladies and even these men unrealistic standards to live up to in lieu of the Photoshop. So I'm going to definitely give the points to the Knights for this round. Another flawless debate, or at least it will be after we touch it up during the commercial break. Welcome back. Now, I know California is obnoxiously huge, so why don't we just break it up? LA thinks it's too cool for the rest of California anyway. According to venture capital investor Timothy Draper, California would be better off if it was 6 states instead of 1. The proposal has recently been cleared for signature collection, and it could very well end up on the statewide ballot in a few months. Between you and me, I can barely memorize the 50 states we have now. 6 more is just too many to remember. It's definitely an intriguing idea, but is it any more than that? Would splitting up California into 6 different states help keep the government more evenly balanced, or will it prove to be pointless and just detrimental to Californian society? right, Knights, let's start with you.
We believe that California has become too large and in that way it's become ungovernable, and breaking the states into 6 smaller states will bring the government closer to the people. Besides from that, it's very big and it's very diverse, so it's hard to have, just one government representing all this variety of people. And then people can also clearly identify with their own region. Like, I've lived in California, I know how Northern California is completely different from Southern California, and it has become too large, too ungovernable, and it's very hard to represent those smaller, poorer states when you have states like LA, Silicon Valley, which are very diverse and completely different than Northern California and the South of California.
So you think they should be split?
Yeah.
Spartans, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, to start, the proposal, which is currently going through consideration, was proposed by Timothy Draper, which was ranked by Forbes magazine as one of the top 17. Well, it's just a ranking system of the top tech investors. In 2008, he was ranked. He's in the 1%.
So he's up there. His
he's
name
a
is out
very,
there.
very,
All right.
yeah, he's very rich. So basically, people, when analyzing his proposal, say that the proposal itself is too favoring towards the 1%. Is too favorable to these businesses and his own personal
Favoring
bias.
towards the more wealthy
Yeah,
percentage?
favoring towards the more wealthy.
It's not considering the little man.
Yeah, exactly. So first off, this proposal itself is flawed, but in addition to that, the problems with it, which it addresses, there's too many problems which are created. There's more problems created than solved.
Yes.
There's issues as far as how just the UC school system, which is considered to be one of the best in the nation for colleges, that would be broken up, disallowing certain students to have the opportunity to go to any California school. The water system, transportation system, the corrections systems, the state would have to create completely new corrections facilities, would have to create completely new prisons. Basically, just there's so many issues that
Dividing
would
it
arise.
all into 6.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
there's so
right.
many issues and there's so much
You
funding
need
that
6
would
of everything that a state needs.
exactly. So there's so much funding that would go into it. It wouldn't solve as many problems.
But the good part about it is that if you divided it into it, then you would have smaller, more local governments. Because obviously each
So
part
they
of
could be
the
more
state,
controlled?
Yeah, because each part of the state has different problems. Obviously, the problems from smaller states aren't going to be the same problems in larger states. And if you go up to a government and try to plead for your own little problem, they're not going to hear you because California is huge. But yet, if you divide it and then cater to each of the state's needs, it's going to make it much more governable and much more easier.
Well, do you think in that case necessarily having these smaller states, especially if we're splitting them into regions that are more similar to each other, do you think that it's going to be even, though?
I think obviously so there are
Like
big names,
resources.
LA and Silicon
Right.
Valley, but every state has what they're good at and what they're bad at. Like the smaller states, obviously, like I said, it's going to help the poor parts because their unique needs are going to be heard better by the smaller local governments. And again, their diverse population has rendered California just too ungovernable. There's so many different parts.
Of course,
like I said
if you
before,
split it up,
everybody has
though,
to
you
identify with
could
their own state.
focus on smaller areas and smaller issues within a particular community. So I guess there is that positive, but at the same time, California also works really well as a whole, and they bounce off of each other to work together, such as the California State Water Project, which uses aqueducts throughout the entire state, and pumping stations. You would have to disperse water across the entire state, and you'd have to split that up. And if you think about all the tax money that's gone towards this project, as well as spending from the state, you'd have to. How are you going to be able to split that spending up and equally divide it back towards who it should go to?
California has
if
one
you
of
split
the
6
highest
ways.
debts in the country, and if we were to split California up into 6 states, they would proportionally distribute the debt based on population, which means Northern California, which is notoriously poor and impoverished, which is also not highly populated, they would have less debt to pay back.
But how much debt would be incurred from the creations of new DMVs, new prisons, new aqueducts to
Think of all the money they're going to
have
have to use to put towards these expenses.
In addition, if you're talking about dealing with individual minorities more and being able to cater more to the needs of different populations, you could potentially divide the state of California into smaller districts where you could have state centers which deal with the individual problems instead of dividing into entire different states. There's so many issues that come about by creating 6 individual states. You'd have to elect new senators, you have to elect new representatives, you have to elect new governors, you'd have to deal with the water problem.
But with 6 states, you would have more of a representative government.
But your argument for debt, there would be more debt incurred from all of the new facilities which have to be implemented.
And of course, they're going to get reimbursed with the money, but then again, they're going to have to use that money just to go and purchase, make new things such as schools,
I'm thinking about the
jails.
California people. If you change the government, it brings it closer to the people. The people want to be heard. And if California is divided into 6 states, those 6 states will have their voices heard.
The same problem could be addressed by individualing or
counties,
dividing into
by making counties.
smaller districts,
They
smaller
already have
counties.
But if you made
Yeah,
smaller
but
counties.
but your argument is that if we divide it into smaller sections, we can deal with problems more adequately. We can divide the districts into smaller districts, and we can have more representatives to represent.
When I think of California, I think of Hollywood and the rich and famous. Well, that's not all of California.
so much more.
Northern California,
I wasn't
as
saying
I said,
that.
is so impoverished that they need their own government that addresses their specific
But by that
needs.
argument, all the money that's coming from Hollywood currently goes to the state, which can in turn give out money and dole out to more
Yes.
impoverished regions. So if you're taking away the more financially successful Southern California, then any taxes that are incurred back to the state aren't going to be going into relief funds for the impoverished North.
All right, on that note, I got to wrap you guys up. That's a good last thought, though. I'm going to work off that. So the impoverished communities, it's definitely not going to be equal. A lot of resources, like you said, the new resources are going to cost a lot going 6 ways. And if they're, like you guys said, if they're already in debt, how good is it going to be if we need to spend more money to make these resources that we don't have enough money in the first place? But what I did like that you guys said is that the unique needs do need to be heard. This is something that, especially a large state such as California, that already, it seems like there already are almost 6 regions that it's kind of split into. People aren't going to get their voice heard. I mean, you have the movie stars in LA that's so different from the northern counties where the people are living so much further apart and there's so much different wealth statuses. But I'm going to have to give the points to the Spartans on this one. I think that overall it would cost too much, it would not be beneficial to the government, and I don't think that everyone would be even though the smaller needs would be heard. So at this juncture, we are going to make like a state and split, but don't worry, we'll be right back with more Speechless. The Spartans have jumped ahead of the Knights in the Speechless race for Grand Champion. Now, for my humble opinion. When it comes to the issue of sexual assault here at Emerson, I always get a little uneasy. Not because I feel Emerson is lacking in resources, but more to do with how handling of these events have transpired. There are numerous programs and resources accessible to students, and even more in the making. I think the problem lies more in communication between students and faculty. If we clear up these miscommunications and utilize more of our available aids, we can definitely eradicate the notion that Emerson does not support sexual assault victims. I have always found models to look somewhat unrealistic in print. I know this is because of Photoshop, but I do not think that using altered images is the crime that people are making it out to be. It's the advertiser's job to sell something in the most profitable way possible. While I do understand that these images can create a harmful stigma to young people, I feel that the companies buying ad space have the right to fill it how they please. However, I do think that the way to neutralize the heat of the argument would be to implement small warning labels about Photoshop somewhere on the ad. When I first heard this week's topics, I thought the one about California was kind of a joke. But sure enough, it's a real proposal and not the first of its kind. However, I believe that splitting up California into the states proposed by Draper would only cause more imbalance and inequality to the government. 50 is just such a perfect number. Well, that's all for tonight. Keep it relevant, Emerson. Good job. This night's episode of Speechless is brought to you by Chipotle. Make sure to check out their new series on Hulu.